Thanks so much, everyone, for coming out to our women's and motorsports panel. My name is Chris Bachman. I'm the section chair for SAE. And so we put on events like this as part of our meetings and tours group. So if you enjoy what you had today, we're always looking for volunteers to help us put on more exciting events like this. We also do a lot of events for students. So we're here in the fall putting on an event for 300 students as well. So come and find me afterwards if you're interested in getting more involved in SAE. This event put on by SWE and then Women's in Motorsports that Vanessa is. I'm really excited that you're putting this on and to hear from everyone here. So with that, I'll hand it off to Dean here to talk a little bit more about what we're up to this spring. Anyways, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Dean Case. I've been involved with this for way too long. This program was something we actually started to do in 2020 with SWE-LA, and then COVID hit. And so we had to kind of pivot to all online, and we felt that this is the type of discussion that really should be in person. And one of the things about the timing with the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, we thought, well, gee, we'll get some of the engineers who come in with the IndyCar teams, and we realized, wait a second, we've got this amazing talent pool in Southern California. We don't need anybody from Indy or Charlotte. We got great talent here. So I want to introduce a couple of people to say words about a couple of upcoming events. Karen from SWE-LA.
Hey, hello everyone. All right, so I wanted to thank SAE for letting me speak today. Mostly I'm here to invite you to our 2025 Professional Development Conference. I am part of SWE-LA, and every year we host an event. You're welcome to scan the QR code. But yeah, every year SWE-LA hosts a one-day conference dedicated to amplifying the voices of our guest speakers and recognizing the trailblazers of women in STEM and providing a platform for our professionals to network. And the great thing about this conference is that all of the proceeds go to creating scholarships for our local colleges and universities. And so this year, our key topics are innovative engineering solutions, trailblazing women, emerging technologies and future trends, pushing boundaries, and collaborative innovations. Basically, it's like a space for women to empower themselves, network with fellow engineers from different companies, and then just interact with women who are maybe in higher positions. And so I'm here today because we're looking for sponsors. So if your company is interested in sponsoring something like this, it is going to be in April, so it's pretty soon, April 25th on Friday. We're hosting it at the ASU California Broadway building. And the special thing about this building is that it's the first building that was designed by a female architect in LA. So we're really lucky to be able to have it at this place. We also have a caterer that's a female founder. So we try to create the event around just like female leaders for females, created by women who are engineers as well. So yes, if you have any questions, please reach out. If you can't attend this event, but you're interested in attending other events with SWE, also reach out. If you want to volunteer with us, that's also available. SWE-LA is one of the largest groups for SWE, and so there's always something to do, and I'm really excited to hopefully collaborate more with SAE, so thank you.
Thank you. Don Taylor, how are you going to the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach this weekend? Quite a few of you. What are you doing Saturday morning? Don will tell you what you're doing Saturday morning.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Dean. Glad to be here. Don Taylor. I'm with the Stand 21 Safety Foundation and the MIA, Motorsports Industry Association in England. That's a trade group. But I want to say, first of all, that I'm familiar with women in motorsports. We did a seminar, as we always do, at the PRI show in December. And I got in a day early, and Cindy Sisson invited me to the WIMMA, Women in Motorsports North America Conference. You heard about it? Was anybody there? Yeah, great. And you saw that there were like 600 attendees for the 3 days. It's just a fabulous meeting they held, and just great information, great speakers and everything. So it's a strong movement. The other thing, though, is with women in motorsports. I'm familiar with that because I'm married to one. It's a woman in motorsports, my wife, Kristen Helsel, who at General Motors, she ran the Trans Am team, which is championship team that year, Jack Baldwin, and the Hot Wheels cars, Scott Sharp. She managed the Joe Nemechek's NASCAR team. She managed the Jimmy Johnson Herzog NASCAR Busch team for many years, the ASA teams and so forth. Now she's CEO for a company doing electric vehicle charging infrastructure. But she had a path, she found a path there. And I think there's many paths. I talked to the people in England, the MIA. They're very big on motorsports and what's happening in the industry in general. I mentioned what's happened at the WA&E conference. I spend time in Charlotte. I don't know if anyone wants to move to Charlotte. Any hands on that? Not a one. Well, as you've heard, General Motors, is starting this Formula One team. And much of the engine work will be done in Charlotte. They're building a building for that. Some of the chassis, and I'm not sure which part of it will be done there. It's also the home of the General Motors Racing Technical Center. And they're hiring left and right. So if there was any interest, this would be a time to do it. But the reason I'm here tonight and this weekend is on Saturday, as Dean talked about, we have another safety seminar. We've been doing this at Long Beach for about 15, 16 years now, featuring Danny Thompson, not Danny Thomas. That would be only Dean and I would remember Danny Thomas. But there we go. Get the photo op. Okay. Yes, we have Danny because we are theming this as racing safe at any age. So he and myself are covering the older age group. From SFI, Mike Hurst will be there talking about youth racing. And of course, in karting, there are chest protectors, there are children's size Hans devices, children's size helmets, and so forth. So we get some insight into that. And you are just a little bit older than that as you're entering this industry. Dean's very close, obviously, to SAE and the students, the graduates. And I think what's happening is, versus 20, 30 years ago, we're just pioneering a lot of the safety when it came to the Hans devices and basal skull fracture, understanding that. Understanding the use of window nets and the surround seats and all those things have developed. And I think the younger people growing up today, I think when you get involved with a Formula SAE car, you got safety in mind with considerations, obviously for fuel safety, but also for driver safety, and you just sort of grow up with that. So that's good. And through the ages, we've seen improvement in safety. So we have that Saturday, and another piece of that will be a film, a documentary by a filmmaker named Taylor Hawkins. Does that ring a bell, anybody? Okay, and Dean knows him, and he's done a lot of work in the motorsports filming industry too. Anyway, if you are at Long Beach, I would say come on down, 9 to 11, information at your seats there, and love to see you there. Thank you.
So, thank you. Hey, as you probably know, hopefully you know, all of our events are entirely volunteer run, which is sometimes sort of a little bit loose. And before we did our event last month at the SEMA Garage, we had at that event we had 425 students from 30 universities and over a dozen companies actively hiring. And before that, I got I think it was an email from someone who said, I just graduated, can I volunteer and help? Which is something that you just don't get enough of. I'm sure my counterpart SWE knows that. You need more volunteers. So Vanessa Belk reached out and says, hey, I'm job hunting and I have available time. Can I come and help? I was like, yes, you can. And so she was a tremendous help on that. And we got talking about what her passion is on getting more women involved in the sport and the industry. And said, well, you'd be the perfect person to moderate this panel we've been trying to pull together. Can you help bring it to the finish line? And she did. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring up Vanessa and turn the program over to her so that she can introduce our panelists and get to the heart of the conversation.
Hello, as stated, I'm Vanessa. I recently graduated from Cal Poly Luis Obispo. I was the business team lead of Cal Poly Racing, so I coordinated, a couple $100,000 worth of sponsorships, all of the marketing, merchandising, all of that jazz. But something that I found within myself and the other girls on the racing team is that there needed to be a better pipeline from, being an undergraduate in college, getting interested in Formula or Baja SAE, all the way through to bringing that to a career. So something that I've been working to start is this organization called Women in Automotive and Engineering, WA&E, sort of a counterpart to SAE, to not only just empower women trying to go into either automotive or motorsport or related fields, but to give them concrete professional development and also mentorship throughout their time in college. So we literally just started up in the past couple weeks here, but we're really excited to get involved, hopefully with SWE-LA and also with SAE SoCal. So without any further ado, we are going to bring up our lovely panelists, if you'd love to come up here. Awesome. And would you like to go down the line and introduce yourself, talk about what field of engineering you're in, your current role and company, and what you're working on right now?
Yeah, so, is it on? Yes. Yeah, okay. So I'm Nicole Swanson. I work at Toyota Racing Development. I work in the Emerging Technologies Department. So although my co-neighbor engineers are working on the engines, I work on hydrogen fuel cell development and generators for on-track support. So currently we have a mobile generator in the back of a Toyota Tundra, and I develop all the integration for our fuel cell stack into that generator state, and then we provide power at the hospitality tents. They're traveling with the GR Cup Series.
I'm Rachel Nichols. I work at Zinger Vehicles right now. I went to... Louder? Okay. I went to Cal State Northridge, just around the corner, kind of, in the San Fernando Valley. Then I worked at Swift Engineering, where I worked on Formula Nippon, carbon chassis, and a lot of aerospace projects. Then I went to the UK and got my master's degree and started working at Mercedes Formula One. I was there for 8 years doing structural analysis. So that's making sure things aren't going to break or that they do break, because I worked on crash structures. And I came back to the States in 2020. I worked at a smaller startup company and then came to Zinger, where I do structural analysis. And if anybody doesn't know, Zinger is like a 3D printed car, so there's a lot of structures that are 3D printed with their proprietary blend of powder. So that's the cool thing.
Hi everyone, my name is Amani Gonim. I am 2 years now graduated from USC. I did my bachelor's degree there. The year before I graduated, I interned at NASCAR R&D in North Carolina, and I worked on the aerodynamics team and spent some time there. And then after I graduated, I got picked up by HRC, Honda Racing, and now I'm a powertrain engineer over there. So I do a lot of dynamometer work and testing with the vehicles. And yeah, it's a lot of engine analysis, a lot of fun. Yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, I'm Asha. Began my career in trucking actually, so I've been a Daimler employee for a while. And then transitioned from trucking over to Mercedes officially a couple years ago. So started in trucking, now work on the car side. So I work on quite a few different future models coming up. And my main form is I'm a senior powertrain engineer, so my job is to test vehicles in extreme environments, so extreme hot weather, extreme cold weather, making sure that the vehicle works properly, the powertrain system works properly for a couple of different models. And then on my spare time, I'm also an ACC US and SCCA official. So I'll actually be officiating this race coming up in the next couple of days. And then I also officiate quite a few of the Formula One races and some other cool races as well. So, yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Olaszewski, and I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and I did that for many years. Spent 8 years in the automotive industry working for a tier 1 supplier we were the sole supplier to Ford, and it was very exciting times. And then I moved to California and worked in drag racing, behind the scenes in drag racing for 15 years. And absolutely loved it. It was, we were doing data acquisition systems, so we worked with all of the drag racing teams, and we also supplied data acquisition systems to other types of racing. And most recently, I went back and got an MBA, and I've been running a large machine shop. So I got out of the drag racing, and that was really rewarding and loved it, and chief operating officer. And I'm really excited to be here tonight with these amazing women, and hopefully we have a great discussion tonight.
Well, we are very excited to have you. Bit of a round of applause for them. And just to start things off, could you all tell us a little bit about your journey into your current role? So whether it's you have a background in family racing, you've always been interested in it, how did you get into the sport?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start again. I have a family history of racing. My grandfather used to drag race, and then my mom and I co-drive currently a 1964 Corvette. So we do a lot of vintage racing, road courses, all self-sponsored. So I've been going to tracks ever since I could waddle on my own. And then eventually she got me in, and I was able to get my hands dirty building the engine with her. And when it came time for college applications, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but she said mechanical engineering is the closest you can get. So I went to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo and got my degree there in mechanical engineering. And I interned at Magnaflow, the racing and exhaust or performance exhaust company, and found that I really loved the community. It was more welcoming than I guess my elders had told me it might be. And the people were just wonderful. And so from there, I found my way to TRD, a little bit removed now. But yeah, I've always grown up around cars. I've always loved cars. And now I'm able to apply, a little bit more puzzle solving to something that's still in the industry.
I got into racing specifically from Formula SAE, so I didn't have any experience with cars or racing, or I had no interest in it. And then my friends were doing this project for their senior project, and they said, "Oh, you should come do it with us." And I was like, "I don't want to do that project. That looks really hard." But they convinced me to join them. And yeah, literally, I walked in, and they were like, "Here's one of the old cars. Like, we're gonna take the radiator off." And I was like, "Cool. Which one's that? And how does it come off?" Because I had no experience with anything. So yeah, I'm super excited that I got to do that project and had such a great time with it. So I did the project 2 years in a row, and then while I was doing the project on my second year, I did the composite chassis for our car, and I had to go and ask for help because my school didn't have a composite section. So I went to Cerritos Community College, and I took an evening class there, learned how to laminate, lay up stuff, and then I would also go to SWE-LA Engineering and ask them for help on how do you make tooling for composites. Had starting from zero knowledge on it at all. So I kept going and asking for help, and then eventually someone was like, "Why don't you work here?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't know that was an option. So I started interning there before I graduated, and then just carried on with the company.
So I am just like Rachel, where Formula SAE was kind of my outlet into motorsport. I grew up in the performing arts, actually, so nothing to do with motorsport. And then I started at USC, and my advisor told me, "Oh, there's this really cool race car team. You should check it out." So I did, and then I immediately fell in love with it. And then it just so happened the same year we opened the Baum Family Makerspace at USC, which is like a machining makerspace. So they taught me how to machine, how to weld, how to use a CNC, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I kind of stuck with it, and then that coming year, they did the LA Coliseum race for NASCAR, which is our football field. So they said, hey, we want to meet the USC Formula team. And so I had some connection there, and then picked up an internship with NASCAR R&D. That was kind of my first full exposure to motorsport, and actually seeing like a full wind tunnel. They took me to Windshear and Aerodyne in North Carolina, for any of you those that are familiar with it. A lot of trackside events. So that was really cool. And I think at that point, with my experience on Formula SAE and then with NASCAR, I was like, okay, yes, this is for me. So then through some alumni, I ended up working with HRC, and now I'm here, and we do IndyCar and IMSA. And so I love it. It's interesting seeing the IndyCar, the IMSA, and the NASCAR, the different sanctioning bodies and kind of how they function. But all different sanctioning bodies, but all have the heart of motorsport. And yeah, I really enjoy it.
So the way I got into racing and then the automotive industry, both my parents were engineers, so that was kind of a given. My parents love to joke and say that, they sat all of me and my sisters down and said, what type of engineer you want to be when you grow up? So there wasn't really a choice in my family becoming an engineer. And then I grew up going to races. So the first race I ever went to was actually the Long Beach Grand Prix back in the day. And just love racing, love being around it, love being around the people that are around it. When I went to college, though, I was discouraged to continue or to go into the automotive industry, motorsports industry. So I thought I was going to be a cosmetic chemist. I actually even made a group at my school dedicated to increasing more awareness to cosmetics, and I thought I was going to go to L'Oreal. And then my junior year, I had a moment, and I said, well, I actually really like cars. So switched over, got a different internship, worked at PACCAR, and it was history after college. I started as an intern at Daimler and, been at Daimler forever, and then when the split happened, came over to the Mercedes side. So that's kind of my story. And then the official side, I have been an official for 6-7 years now. So started at small races, going to local tracks, and then just kind of blossomed from there. So really just going to tracks all day, every weekend is basically it.
My school it had an SAE chapter, but they weren't really active in the vehicles. And but I did gravitate. I loved the SAE organization, and it inspired me to get involved in the mobility industry. And I was fortunate to, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, big metropolis up there, and I was fortunate to get a job in the only Tier 1 automotive supplier in Winnipeg, and loved it. Spent 8 years there, loved being in the automotive industry, loved going to Detroit once a month and seeing the bucks in the prototypes and everything. And then we moved to California, and I'm loving the weather here. And that was 24 years ago, and I wanted to stay within the mobility industry, and through networking I got an opportunity at RacePac. They were a data acquisition company, and absolutely loves being in that market, and went to the local races. I was behind the scenes, so I wasn't on a race team and traveling. I was behind the scenes working on designing of the data acquisition systems. And so, but I took my whole family every November and February to the drag races, and we all loved it. And I took the kids out of school, and I just told their teachers, my husband and I are both engineers, and we're making this an educational field trip. And they were always great with it and supportive. So, so that's me in a nutshell.
On that note of traveling, motorsport obviously involves a ton of travel. So how has that affected your experience within industry and your personal life?
I guess we'll go in order again. I don't travel a whole lot in my industry. I think it's really important that people understand there's other aspects to motorsports. It's not just immediate track support. And that's kind of the glamour, I think, of racing. But there's other people who get to be involved and put their hands on the engines and put their hands on things nearby. I travel probably 4 times a year, maybe, if that. I follow my generator around and provide support for that. But I'm not going to every race. Sometimes I wish I would. But it's not go all in or nothing. Like, you're able to travel and still have a life or be in motorsports and not dedicate all of your time to it if you don't want to. If you do, there's definitely opportunities for that. But for me, I've found a good balance between my work life and personal life and traveling.
I traveled quite a bit early on in my automotive career. I was traveling twice a month, once to our sister company in Minneapolis and once to Detroit. And my husband was also in the mobility industry and traveling a lot. And we were literally 2 ships passing in the night often. And we had one situation where there was a storm delaying my flight, and he had to find somebody to take the kids because he had to go to the airport for his trip. And we managed to juggle it all until we had our 3rd child. And at that point, and this is interesting, I think, for anybody, I started working part-time as an engineer. And I will say that part-time engineering jobs don't exist. Nobody's advertising for a part-time engineer. But it's really easy to create those opportunities, particularly with small companies. They don't even know that they want a part-time engineer until you walk through their door and introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm looking for a part-time engineering job. And I've done that twice now, and the opportunities are out there. And it's really an attractive proposition for a small company to hire somebody part-time. They don't have to pay you benefits. And it's easier for them to budget for. And so that's my big advice for don't limit yourself and when you're trying to find that balance.
I'd just maybe like to add, because I do travel a lot for work, for my day job and other jobs that I have. I think just having a support network that supports you. So even people who don't travel or do travel in motorsports, but it can be really tough. You're on the road for several weeks out of the year, probably 50, 60% of the time. So just having that support network that is not both at home and the team that carries you from race to race, I think is super important. Who you work with is super important because that really makes or breaks your travel. And having that, bandwidth to understand that it's destination, it's like, ship sailing in the night almost, going from race to race. So having that grounding purpose, each week after week to perform the same level week after week. So, yeah.
I don't travel for work, so but I have had to look at live track data from the F1 races, looking at the loads going through suspension members. So when you're in the UK, like Japan starts at 2 a.m., so that's like you're on a different time zone even if you're at home. So that's it.
Whether it's time zones or travel or anything else you've encountered, is there anything really unexpected any of you have encountered working in motorsport? Anything that, before going into the industry that surprised you when you became a part of it?
I was extremely pleasantly surprised at how many women were in drag racing. I think it's, out of all of the motorsports, drag racing is extremely, has an awful lot of women in it. Driving, behind the scenes, crews, everything. And so it was fantastic. I just never felt out of place. So that was a delightful surprise.
How many people it takes to put on a race. It's shocking the types of roles people have in the industry. I know we're specifically talking about engineering, but it takes a stadium full of people to put on a race every single week, week after week, all the pro races. So that is probably the most surprising, shocking thing whenever I got into the industry.
To piggyback off that, the people and what they put into the engines and the engineering and everything that goes into it, My mom's a lawyer, so I never watched her work a weekend. My dad does advanced tech support, doesn't really work the weekends. But motorsports, if the car needs to get put together, you're putting it together. You are spending the weekend and you are there and you are doing it until the job gets done. So, you know, the drive that people have and doing what it takes and how many people it takes to get what needs to get done, I think is something unique to the motorsports.
Just on a funny note, in the drag racing, you've got to tear down the engine and build it again after every race and several times a weekend. And when you get a cut, you're not allowed, you don't go get stitches. It's just not an option. You find the super glue and you glue yourself back together and you get back to work on the car. And I just thought that was crazy. So.
Okay, nothing else surprising. On the note of just talking about the support networks and kind of really trying to maintain those for whether it's traveling, not traveling, working weekends or not, what is either your team or company or any of the nonprofits you've been a part of done to empower or support you as women in the field?
I'm fortunate that my day company is very supportive of my night job, I like to call it, which is being an official. So having a company in the daytime that supports your work and is non-biased about it is extremely helpful, as you can probably understand. And then obviously, like if we talk about nonprofits, I am on a couple of nonprofits, profit boards, and I would say just the amount of pathways to contribute to your success. I think a successful person, you look at one individual, every single individual person in this room, you are only as successful as the network that you are a part of. And I think especially in the nonprofit world or any like subsidiary world that contributes to the motorsports organization as a whole, that helps build people up and as us as women, build us up to become who we are and as successful as each and every one of us here and off the stage are. I think it's super important to make sure you have that, so.
My company, Toyota as a whole, not the TRD group, puts on a North American Women's Conference for a bunch of women in the company, and there are thousands of attendees to this, or maybe closer to 1,000. I was lucky enough to be invited this past November, and it's a really wonderful thing. You get all the women of the company, you meet people that are doing paint in Alabama, you meet people like, I was the only female from TRD there representing it. But you meet people in the financial space of the automotive industry. You meet people, you know, on the manufacturing line. So Toyota does big strides, and it was a 3-day conference of being able to meet these other women and talk to them and their experiences. And then also I'm lucky that my mom is in it. So I've always had strong females around me. If anything, I get the most gripe because I'm 2 years out, freshly graduated. So if anything, it's my youthfulness that my coworkers are giving me stuff about, so, yeah.
Excuse me. At Mercedes, we were involved in Susie Wolf's initiative to get women into racing. So it was mostly like school-age girls, so like anywhere from like 8 to 16. They'd have like a day where they'd come around the factory, they get a tour, but then they also get to like play on a CAD station, so like twirl around some like 3D models and see how we model the car and try changing a tire, which is funny watching like a bunch of 8-year-olds try to change an F1 tire. It was good, and then play in the simulator, so that was always fun to like join those events.
There's not too much specifically that comes up to mind about Honda, but one thing that I would say is a really positive experience is there's so few women in the company that we all really we kind of congregate and like support each other. You know, group chats, dinners, you know, support about work and just talking about things. I think what's really nice about kind of being one of the minorities in motorsport is that you all kind of really look out for each other. And so that would be one of the biggest positives, I would say.
Awesome. Have you encountered any unique challenges as a woman in the field, or anything that comes to mind on how you overcame them, ways that you did positive self-talk or really pushed yourself harder to go into this industry where women are such a minority?
So, it's funny because you would think that as a woman you get a little bit more grief than I personally have actually experienced. So I've been very fortunate to not necessarily experience or have any bad experiences. My mindset, because I know I'm a minority in most of the rooms that I'm in, is in some ways I like to pretend I'm not a woman, like in the sense of like I treat myself the same as everyone else in whatever conference room. I think knowledge is your best weapon. So if you can really display yourself as an equal and really show that you can contribute, then I haven't had an experience where I can show my capabilities and someone kind of still bashes you. That's not really the case. I think if you can prove your knowledge on the track and in-house, then people can conjure that respect for you.
I think the industry's changed a lot. Some people talk about the good old days, and maybe there weren't as many women in the field now, but we're growing in numbers. We still are the minority, but we're out there, and some vendors or people that you work with maybe have an idea of what it was back in the day, and that's hard to encounter, especially like direct, how do I say this? People that are so attached to what they've experienced in the past. It's hard to get over that, but like you said, just knowing what you can do and how you can prove yourself and just show up and do your best every day and treat yourself the same as everyone else in the room, and they're gonna treat you the same way. As long as you stand up for yourself and you know what you know, you're proving yourself every day, and people will come around to that for sure.
Throughout my career, I've been the only woman in the room, and that can be challenging. It's daunting. For my last job running a machine shop, I had a panel interview with 8 men. And you have to just, know your worth and build up your confidence. And I guess I just got used to it over the years because, I went to an event recently, and it was a networking event for CFOs, and it was just so exciting because I wasn't the only woman in the room. It was about 40% women, and I was just beside myself. I just sometimes forget, I'm just so used to being the only woman in the room, and you need to work on that and build up your confidence and know that you deserve to be there and own it.
I've been trying to think of my answer to this question. It's a little bit different for me. I'm not going to say that it was easy in my entire career. I think we can all reiterate that being a minority is very hard in engineering in more ways than not, for myself in particular. And I say that the number one thing that I've had to learn is that it's okay for you to be right if it means somebody else is wrong. That's very hard, I think, for anyone to overcome, is to understand that you are smart enough, you are good enough to be there, you are good enough to be in the space, you have a right at the table. And that's something that I've had to learn for years to bring that confidence up. So I'm a lot better at it now than I was when I first started as an engineer. But yeah, I would say that was, I wouldn't say it's been the easiest path for me, but yeah, I've learned so much. I've become such a more confident person, a much more confident engineer because of the lessons and the challenges that I've had in my career. But yeah, I would say, yeah, that's mainly it.
Could you touch on some of those lessons that you've learned, whether it's, building confidence or asserting your skill set? Is there any advice that you would give to whether it's, young engineers or young professionals in general on how to whether assert themselves at the table or build their own confidence, etc.?
My dad gave me probably one of the earliest, most important lessons that I try to utilize throughout my career, and said, only speak when you know what you're talking about. So I don't speak on things where I have no idea. So, I'm a powertrain engineer. I'm not going to talk about aerodynamics. I'm not going to talk about, ADAS systems in a car or anything like that. So I try my best to, whenever I do speak, I know what I'm talking about, and I have the information in my head, and I can find the information through books and everything to back it up. So that's one lesson that I've taken with me throughout my career, so that when I am, especially when I'm delivering data that is design engineers do not like, I can confidently tell them why.
Yeah, I would say kind of building onto that. So, yeah, what I was saying earlier, one of the beauties about engineering is it's, you hear all the time, like it's very black and white. It's not humanities. There is a right answer a lot of the time. But there's multiple ways to do the same thing. But I think one of the biggest skills that you learn in school is how to become a researcher, how to be self-taught, what's a credible source, how do you put together data, how do you critically think, and things like that. So I think if you can use those tools to help you present yourself well at the table, and if you have the right answers, then, a lot of people will see that and respect that. You either have the right answer or you don't. And like Asha said, you only speak when you really know what you're saying. So I think that if you show knowledge and confidence in your field, and that your expertise really shows, then it's really easy to be treated like everyone else.
Amani, touching on one of your points, for any of you, is there anything that you wish that you pursued more as an undergraduate student while you were still in school, whether that was a Formula or a Baja SAE project or any personal endeavors?
So I was thinking about this question. I would say that maybe even being a little bit more hands-on. So, if you're just a bookworm, that doesn't help you too much in motorsport. Motorsport is definitely a really big combination of the two. I think it's pretty different from production vehicles, where usually you have mostly one or two tasks, and you stay mostly at your desk. In motorsport, you're at the track, sometimes you're at the machine shop, you're in the build shop advising the engine builder on what to do, or what designs to change. You're speaking with the simulation group, with the design group, you speak with all the different departments. And so I think being able to apply yourself and being able to give the builder, you should build it to this tolerance, and this is why this makes sense. So, I think I wish I spent more time in the machine shop. I did work quite a bit in the machine shop, but I think even more, hands-on. In Formula SAE, I was the chief engineer for the last 2 years, so it was a lot of management, a lot of overseeing. But it would be nice to have actually spent a little bit more time with the wrenches, even more so than I did, because I think that knowledge is really key to being able to make the team in motorsport work well.
I think the one thing that there's two things. One, the first thing that I wish I had learned more in college was, I think they do a really good job of having you understand how to write a technical paper, but they don't teach you how to write a one-pager. And I feel like a lot of executives only look at one-pagers, and that's something that I had to nail down for like 5 years. Like, trying to get that information down to one PowerPoint slide is probably something I wish I got taught in college. And then the second thing would be definitely networking. So I think we talk as engineers a lot of our technical skills and attributions to our career, but we don't really talk about how to talk. And that's something that I've definitely grown into in my roles, growing into my career. But I wish we were encouraged to lean in more on our soft skills, like our talkability skills, our likability skills, to be able to not only deliver the information, but to deliver the information well. So, yeah.
I think in Formula SAE, and you're taught to always ask why, why are these the requirements? And I'm still using that today. I get told oh, our last car was this stiffness requirement. I'm like, but why? Does that matter for our car? Does that affect the handling of our car? And so just like always being curious and asking why. I think that's what engineering is all about, but yeah, people can forget in the noise sometimes.
Yeah, just to reiterate on Asha's point, they do teach you in school like how to write a technical paper and like really long ones. But I also get, we need a single slide, something very concise. I also didn't realize how much of real world engineering was PowerPoint. And so being taught like how to present in PowerPoint, I mean, you only write papers in school, but the reality is that you're always in a conference room presenting to a bunch of engineers, and a full, 5, 10, 20-page report is not an effective way to get your ideas across. So just overall presentation and like effective communication with visuals and things like that.
I'm going to go back to, I wish I'd had more involvement with the SAE and more hands-on experience, because I found that I was at a disadvantage, and my male counterparts who grew up working on engines, and Winnipeg's a rural community. A lot of my classmates were from the farm. They'd been working on tractors. A lot of them were crop duster pilots, and every class we took, they were instantly applying what they were learning in their mind, or it was all making sense to them. Whereas for me, it was purely academic, and I just didn't internalize it as well as them. And so I think having some form of hands-on experience, whether it's through SAE or any other hobby, or I wish I'd had something. And if I were to do it all over again, that's what I would do differently.
You would have loved Baja.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So one quick question before we start moving into our Q&A. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, knowing what you wanted to do today, what would you tell her?
Network. As an engineer, I know that, one of our soft skills that we struggle with is communicating with people. It's, the classic stereotype. But, people say networking, it sounds really fake. It sounds very forced. But, it doesn't need to be. It's genuinely taking an interest in your coworkers and your colleagues and what they're doing. And if you love the motorsport industry enough, then you love to hear about all the different roles and the way that people fit in different parts of the puzzle. There's a lot of different sanctioning bodies, a lot of different racing series, a lot of different roles that you can play. And so just taking an interest in what other people are doing and really trying to connect and learning something from them, and you offering something to learn as well. I think that's a really important thing. That's how we all grow from each other. So I would just tell anyone and everyone, your network is your biggest thing. So really focus on that.
I would say to my younger self, it's not as scary as you think it's going to be. You have to kind of jump in feet first, and like we were saying earlier, know your worth, know what you're talking about, and just go for it, because you have every right being there as everyone else. You have just as much of an opportunity as everyone else in the room. You're just as smart. You passed the same classes. You did the same degree. So jump in and do it because you have a passion for it, and don't be scared, because I was when I was younger, and it's turned out so much better for me now. So
I would say don't focus so much on the GPA. I was laser focused on getting good grades, and that's part of the reason I didn't get involved in the SAE vehicles that they had. And at the end of the day, the GPA didn't make a difference. And as a recruiter now, as somebody who hires engineers, I don't really care what their GPA was. I don't care what university they went to. What have you done with your degree? What are you passionate about? And how do you solve a problem?
I'll say I wish for my younger self I nailed it into her brain, the power of grit. So I think 99.999% of the people who are successful are people that kept going, and to just keep going. And grit will get you there faster than your smarts, your wits, and how kind you are. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Can we get another round of applause? And now's the point where we move into the audience Q&A section of this. So feel free to just raise your hand and shout out if you have any questions for our panelists.
Repeat the question so we can pick up on the audio.
Oh, what?
When they ask a question, repeat it.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rachel, correct? So you worked at the Mercedes facility in Brackley, right?
Yes, Brackley.
Okay. So would you share some about how the process of getting you from the United States to a job in England? I have a grandson who's in Formula SAE, and that's his dream, to work for one of the teams.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, that people always ask, how do you go from America to F1? And somebody told me to go get a degree in the UK or in Europe. And that's what other people have heard too. So when I went and got my degree, you could get a student visa and then swap to a work visa with like minimal effort. Now I think they've changed the visa rules, but I think it's still easier to be there and be in front of people, because I was emailing teams before I got on the plane, and I was like, hey, I'm coming there. Actually, I met somebody, so I applied for university a year before I went. And so I was here and I met someone that was in F1, and as soon as my coworker left, I was like, hey, I'm coming to the UK next year. I'm gonna get a degree. Can I talk to you about doing a thesis project with you? So I had contacts with different teams before I even left, and I had a meeting set up with Mercedes before I got on the plane to go to the UK. But some of those were networking through my colleagues at my company. So when I told people at my company that I was gonna leave and go try to get to F1, they were super supportive. They're all old school racers, so they were really happy for me. And a couple people said oh, I know someone in F1. Do you want to be in touch with them? And I was like, okay. And one of those people that I would email all the time, he's worked at Toyota and McLaren and Mercedes and Sauber. And so I emailed him, and he's Japanese, and he moved from Japan to the UK, and he went to university with one of my coworkers. So I started emailing him, and his first reply back was, I'll help you with whatever you want. I'm also an immigrant, and just don't say give me a job. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was just asking about all his time in F1. What was it like? What kind of positions are there? Just doing a bunch of research for myself. And then one day he was like, oh, I talked to the head of composites. He wants to see your resume. So I was like, okay, cool. And that's how I got into that team.
So networking is a key, and it's knowing one person to
It definitely helped, but I also cold emailed teams. So I went on LinkedIn, I found the people that were the head of department, I figured out their email address format, and was emailing people. And it did help that I already had experience, because I could say, I have experience with composite structures and mechanical design. This is what I'm interested in. I want to work on crash structures. I was very specific. And then I had a few people that were cool, send me your resume, and I met up with those people. So I had different options. So yeah, there's a few universities in the UK that are pretty highly regarded. There's also some in Spain that people always recommend to get into F1. But yeah, it did make a big difference to just be there. I went to Cranfield in the middle of the country. It's just surrounded by cows. But one of the reasons I went there is because they have the Impact Center on site, which is where a lot of the F1 teams have to go to homologate their cars. So I got in touch with the people that run the Impact Center, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna be there. And then I think I saw a Red Bull crash test the first week I was there, just because they're like, oh, you're a student, now you can come in, where I couldn't have done that if I was here.
I was literally just about to recommend Cranfield.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Cranfield, Oxford Brook, Southampton, Brunel.
Correct. And there's now one in London, I can't remember the name of it, that
UCL?
now is, UCL is now becoming a popular destination for people who want to be in motorsports. Yeah, it's unfortunate that, well, no, it's fortunate now. Sorry, let me repeat that. And we said at the beginning of this panel that, you know, we do have a Formula One team that's going to, well, we have an American Formula One team, but there's going to be another American Formula One team here soon. So definitely utilize those resources. But for right now, to get onto a Formula One team, the best advice I've always given, I said, go get a master's in the UK. That's the best way that I've always done it. I've always recommended.
Awesome.
I guess I can kind of piggyback off what Rich was saying. My primary method was teaching people motorsport has been I was on whole meal or like going and knocking on their door without knowing who I am. Is there like a better method of doing that? Or do we just keep doing
For F1 especially, as an American, yeah, cold calling is your best method. And then I'm going to reiterate it again, go get a master's in the UK or in Italy or in Spain. Those are the only success parameters that I have with friends of mine who are now in F1 who are American or on the panel. So.
Yeah, and like when you get like a degree in the UK, if you're doing like a motorsports degree, they're gonna have people come in and talk to you, so you will meet more people once you're there. Like that's another part of why it makes sense to like be there and be in front of people.
And they have, I mean, all the teams have so many like on-site days for students. So that's one of the reasons why you want to go get your master's there, is because you then have the opportunity to go to the campuses on site. They have career days on site on all of the F1 campuses. For college, I know it's a little bit different in the UK. So you have college and you have university. So for university students, they have it for university students, and they have it for college students, which is basically like your high school here in the States. And they have all of that opportunity. It's just really opportunity cost of getting over to the UK. But like I said, there is another Formula One team coming to America, so don't lose hope.
You there in the hat. To repeat the question, it was when was the aha, like feeling like an engineer moment?
For me, it was pretty soon into the job, or right off the bat, to be honest. I use first principle engineering in my job every single day. So as a powertrain engineer, I do a lot of combustion analysis in particular, and it's a lot of like log PV diagrams, if you remember that stuff, a lot of thermodynamics, chemical kinetics, fluid dynamics, and applying those equations. Even the other day, I had to help set up a pressure rig, and that was like, okay, Bernoulli's equation, what makes sense for the flow rate if there's a leak in the pressure rig. But I use it every day. Even small things like, we need a sensor or a thermocouple for whatever it is. What's the sampling rate we need? Okay, if the engine's operating at 11.8 RPM or 11,800 RPM, then how many samples per second do you need? So you have to do a calculation on that. But it's in like literally everything. I know some people say like, oh, the hard math or the equations don't matter, but I disagree. I personally use it every single day.
Yeah, so I work in a very small group. I have a group of 5 people and doing the generators, 1 technician and 1 EE, 1 manager and 2 MEs, and we're doing the whole integration. But when I was first hired in, I was kind of the only ME, and they had expected to hire someone jointly with me because I was so young. This is my first job out of college. And my boss gave me a project, and I completed it rather quickly. And he comes back to me and he goes, Nicole, I appreciate what you did, but this isn't a school project. He said, you finished this like it was a school project. You did it, you showed it to me, we did it, but it needs to be revised now. Or you forgot this thing, or you excluded these details. Nicole, this isn't a school project. It's not just done and you're on to the next class. And that was kind of the moment for me where I was like, oh, you're kind of right. So I went back and I have been doing revisions from my first month on the job. I'm actively doing one that I finished this morning, just from my first month of not knowing what I was doing. But now I use the equations and I've learned to notice all those small details. But it was really my boss being like, you need to spend a few more minutes on this. And it's not a due date. Like, I'm not your teacher. Take a few more seconds and look at this again. And now I have another ME on my team that helps me double check the details because I'm still getting the hang of it. But yeah, my boss was like, hey, maybe spend another second. I was like, oh, yeah, I am an engineer, not just in class anymore. So, yeah.
All right, we've got time for like one or two more questions. Over there.
I have actually two brief ones. One, both of us sitting here are in career exploration fields and career pathways. And obviously you all mentioned that there needs to be a sequential and a generation. Instead of asking you, how do we get younger women engaged in this, I'd like to ask you about, once you look at the colleges, whether it be community college on pre-engineering or the colleges, is anybody talking about motorsports? I mean, when I hear engineering, I hear aerospace, I hear biosciences, I hear lots of other sectors, but I don't hear this. And my second is kind of related to that. When I went to SWE, I heard about women in motorsports, and I said, I had no idea that existed. And what my question is motorsports only automotive racing related, or could it be boats? Could it be drones? Could it be something else? Yeah. Motorcycles, yeah.
So your first question was, are they talking about it in colleges and universities? And so the short answer is yes. Long answer is it depends on the region in the country. So in the Midwest and the East Coast, Purdue, you have quite a few universities that are extremely heavily automotive and motorsports focused. And then you have California, which is kind of like your premier automotive motorsports areas. I mean, tons of SAE schools are that win. This is coming from someone that did Formula SAE in college as well. Are from the West Coast as well. So outside of those two regions, I would say that's not really talked about, but it is a growing discussion. I mean, Drive to Survive really kind of like kicked it into high gear for students for getting interested into motorsports, which I think I'm thankful for because now I have more people to talk to. So, and then so I hope that answers your first question for myself. And then the second question is, motorsports is anything with a motor. So for example, you have E1 series, which is the super boat series that goes around the world just like F1. It'll actually be in Miami and in November in America. And that's a motorsport, that is a motorsport series. And then you could talk about all the other different types of, it's besides the main, single seaters, yeah.
Besides automotive and in data acquisition, our systems were popular in tractor pulling and Baja racing, kart racing, boats, motorcycles, land speed. That's land speed over there. I wasn't aware of any planes racing when you're thinking about mobility.
There's electric scooters now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's racing for scooters.
They have the drone stuff, the drone racing, but that's not like a person.
Yeah, but I don't know anything about, I only do straight line. I don't know anything about the NASCAR and the Indy. Yeah, it's not my area.
Awesome. So I think we're kind of closing up. I think we have some closing remarks. So I'd like to bring Dean back up to close.
Thank you for everyone for being on the panel. This was a great group. Give them a round of applause. Well, a couple words. How many of you have never been to this museum before? First time to visit here. Quite a few. This is a nonprofit. We've got a great collaboration with them, and that's what SAE's been trying to do more of. We want to do more collaborations with SWE, SHIP, NESB, and other groups where we can all build upon each other. But if you have a corporate event, consider doing it here, because we've lost several car museums in the last couple of years. The one over in El Segundo closed, and two of them out in Oxnard closed. This is not an easy business to stay in. So Rick Lorenzen, who set this place up, I believe has set it up for longevity, but it requires corporate events. That's why this space here is set up. They can handle 300 people for a sit-down dinner with full audio-visual and a catering kitchen. So please consider that. We'll be back here at the end of this month to talk about nitrous oxide and some more drag racing, so Kelly will probably come back for that one. But we all depend on volunteers, and if you've got an idea that you're willing to step up, or that's why I was so impressed with Vanessa. It wasn't like, hey, you should do this. It's like, I like what you're doing. How can I help? And I hate it when someone says, you should do this and invite this speaker. Well, if you know him, invite him. We're all volunteers. So if we've got ideas, if you're with another group, we like collaboration. So that's why we're happy to partner with Don Taylor and Stand 21. We're happy to help cross-promote our friends over at SWE-LA. These are all great groups. And the goal of this is to make sure that really smart people get employed. And the ones who want to work in the sport, the majority of them, I think, who do Formula SAE, they'll end up working in the mainstream of the industry, whether it's for a Toyota, a Honda in the mainstream, because, there's a very small group of what Nicole's with at TRD, but there's a huge group of other Toyota engineers in the U.S., same with Honda and the others. So huge opportunities, and a lot of the companies rotate their engineers. The whole reason they'll send them over to racing for a couple of years to learn to be faster and then bring that back to the production side. So, but thank you, all of you, for coming, and enjoy the museum before the volunteers eventually kick us out. And the volunteers here are amazing. A bunch of them used to race these dragsters out here. So these are some of the most knowledgeable docents you'll ever find at a museum. So, and this will all be posted onto the SAE SoCal YouTube channel, so please track that. And if anyone needs a discount ticket for the Grand Prix this weekend, talk to me. I'll give you the discount codes. We'll have a student display there. If you walk through the expo, we'll have several schools there with their Formula and Baja cars. So you can check that out. And, we'd like to have more kids pursuing it. We have some who now students will pick a college based on the competitiveness of the Formula SAE team. But a lot of them just discover it accidentally when they get on campus. And so any way is valid. And so anyway, thank you for coming.